What happens when a family's perfect facade shatters in a single night? Today, I'm going to tell you the story of Kevin and Carol, siblings bound by love and separated by tragedy. Their journey will take you through unimaginable darkness and show you how far one brother was willing to go to save his sister from hell on earth. Stay with me until the end, because this story of sacrifice, redemption, and justice will change how you see family forever. Kevin always believed his family was different from others in the neighborhood, different in a good way. While other homes echoed with shouting matches and shattered plates, his was filled with warmth, Sunday laughter, and the smell of Gina's homemade butter chicken. Kevin adored his mother. She was the center of their universe, the calming force in the storm. Carol, his younger sister, clung to her every word, learning how to sew, cook, and navigate life with dignity and love. And Lloyd, well, he was their rock, a strong, hardworking man who always found time to ruffle Kevin's hair or teach Carol how to ride her bicycle. They were not rich, but they were whole. That illusion shattered one late November night. Gina had gone out for groceries just as it started drizzling. Carol had reminded her to carry an umbrella, but Gina had laughed and said she'd only be 10 minutes. 10 minutes became an hour, then 2, then came the phone call. The officer's voice was emotionless. Gina had been hit by a speeding car, died on the spot. Kevin remembered Carol screaming first, then Lloyd, once a proud man, felt his knees like a puppet with its strings cut, clutching his chest and howling into the void. Kevin just stood there, staring at the wall. Something inside him died that night, but it was Lloyd who changed the most. The days that followed were a blur. The funeral, the condolences, the faces of neighbors dropping by with food and empty words. Kevin remembered none of it. He remembered watching his dad sit for hours on the porch, staring blankly at the swing where Gina used to sit with her tea. Then the bottles appeared, slowly at first, a few beers tucked inside grocery bags, then whiskey, then something stronger. The man who once couldn't go a day without hugging his kids started forgetting their birthdays. By the time Kevin was 16, Lloyd was barely holding a job. The bills piled up, food became scarce. Kevin picked up odd jobs, cleaning, delivering newspapers, helping at a local garage, anything to keep the lights on. Carol, barely 14, cooked their meals, washed their clothes, and cleaned vomit off the bathroom floor when Lloyd passed out drunk. Every time Kevin considered calling someone, an aunt, a social worker, Carol would beg him not to. "He's still our dad," she'd whisper. He wasn't always like this. And Kevin believed her, or maybe he just wanted to, because despite everything, Lloyd had once been good, and maybe deep down, Kevin hoped that part of him still existed. If you're finding this story compelling so far, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out on more powerful stories like this one. Your support means everything, and I promise the journey ahead is worth every second of your time. But things got worse. Lloyd started disappearing for nights. Kevin once found a needle in the bathroom sink and flushed it, refusing to believe it was what he thought. He confronted Lloyd about it, and Lloyd punched a hole in the wall, screaming that Kevin had no idea what real pain was. That night, Kevin found Carol sleeping in the closet, curled up with her mother's scarf. He decided then he had to get out, not because he didn't care, because he cared too much. At 19, Kevin landed a low-paying job in another city, barely enough to survive, but it was a lifeline. He packed a single bag and hugged Carol tightly at the bus station. "I'll come back for you," he whispered. "Just hang in there. I'll send money every month, I promise." And he did. Every single month, Kevin sent what little he could. Sometimes it meant skipping meals. Sometimes it meant sleeping in parks when rent ran too high. But every time he dropped that envelope in the mail or hit send on the transfer, he smiled, imagining Carol using the money for college or books or maybe even ice cream. What he didn't know was that Lloyd had started intercepting the funds, that he'd lied to Carol saying Kevin hadn't sent anything that month, that the money meant to support her dreams was now funding Lloyd's addiction. Carol tried to hide the truth. She didn't want to worry Kevin. Whenever he called, she'd lie and say school was going fine, that Lloyd was better now. But behind her smile, her heart was collapsing. The fridge was often empty. She had bruises she couldn't explain, and Lloyd's eyes, they no longer looked like a father's. They were hollow, wild. Kevin, meanwhile, lived in a cramped single-room apartment. His job paid just enough for a mattress on the floor, instant noodles, and the occasional call to his sister. He worked long hours cleaning office floors and dreamed of better days, of rescuing Carol from the decay of their family and giving her the life she deserved. Then came Carol's 20th birthday. Kevin sent extra money that month, enough for a cake, a dress, and maybe a small celebration. He even video called her that night, but she didn't answer. He assumed she was busy. He had no idea that while he sat excitedly looking at a photo of the gift he had ordered online, a silver pendant with their initials, Carol was trapped in a nightmare that would haunt her for the rest of her life. That night, Lloyd was drunker than usual. Carol had made a simple dinner and rice meal, hoping to keep him calm, but the moment he realized the money was almost gone, he exploded. "You don't earn, you don't cook properly, you just sit around like a useless piece of flesh," he slurred. "I try my best," Carol cried. "Your best isn't enough. You're 20. Look at you. You could make us rich if you just knew how to satisfy a man." Carol froze. "What, you heard me?" Lloyd said, eyes blazing. "You're going to work, the kind of work men pay for. You're not a child anymore." She slapped him across the face with all her might, trembling. "How can you say that as a father? Are you asking me to become a prostitute?" Lloyd stumbled, then straightened with rage and punched her in the stomach. She collapsed, gasping for breath. "I'm not asking, I'm telling you. Don't do this, we'll both die. And if you tell Kevin, I'll slit your throat in your sleep." Curled up on the floor, sobbing, bruised and broken, Carol whispered, "Kevin would never let this happen." But Kevin wasn't there, and Lloyd dragged her out of the house that very night. They entered the neon-lit club through a back alley. Carol could barely walk. Her hands trembled as the manager handed her a revealing dress. She changed in a dark restroom, staring at her reflection in the cracked mirror. She looked like someone else, someone she didn't recognize. Her first client waited in room 2B. He smiled at her like a predator spotting easy prey. That night, Carol died inside. Her body was there, but her spirit was crushed beneath shame, fear, and helplessness. And Kevin, miles away, sat on his thin mattress, smiling at the pendant he couldn't wait to give her, still dreaming of a future where they were free. He had no idea his sister was being sold, that his money was being used to buy her chains, that every minute he spent away was a minute she spent in hell. And when he finally learned the truth, it would be too late for mercy. The morning after her first night at the club, Carol woke up on a stained velvet couch in a cold, windowless room. Her body ached in places she couldn't put into words. Her clothes were crumpled on the floor, the remnants of her dignity torn and discarded. Her eyes were puffy and red, and she couldn't remember the last time she had cried that much. She lay still, staring blankly at the flickering overhead light as the reality settled in. This wasn't a nightmare. This was her life now. Lloyd was waiting for her outside the club, pacing and smoking like he had just returned from a hard day at work. When Carol stepped out, visibly broken, he gave her a nod, no hug, no remorse, no concern, just a nod, and held out his hand. She placed the money in his palm without saying a word. "Well done," he muttered as they walked back in silence. That walk home through the dark alleys and quiet streets was the longest of her life. Every footstep echoed the truth in her head. She had been betrayed by the only person left who was supposed to protect her. A father turned pimp, a home turned prison. Lloyd didn't speak much that night. He sat on the edge of the bed, counting the cash again, already dreaming about his next fix. Carol, meanwhile, sat in the bathroom, the door locked, scrubbing her skin raw. She kept whispering her mother's name over and over again, wishing Gina were there, if only she had lived. The next few days blurred into a cycle of numbness. Lloyd set a schedule. Every night by 9 p.m., Carol had to be dressed and ready. He would drop her off at the club, sometimes lingering to chat with the staff and the clients like he was part of the management. At first, Carol refused to talk, to smile, to cooperate, but her defiance only made things worse. Lloyd beat her relentlessly whenever she protested. Her arms and legs were soon littered with bruises. Eventually, she gave up, or maybe she adapted. The club became her graveyard. She began to understand how it worked, who to avoid, how to fake a smile, how to shut off emotionally when someone touched her. The manager, a slimy man named Rick, told her the same thing every night. The quicker you learn to enjoy it, the less it'll hurt. But Carol never learned to enjoy it. She just learned how to survive. She lost track of time. Weeks bled into months. Some clients were rough, some were gentle, but all of them looked at her like a product. Her eyes, once filled with mischief and warmth, now carried the emptiness of someone far older than 20. Her laugh disappeared. Her hobbies, her love of painting, music, reading, withered and died. The only thing she looked forward to were Kevin's calls. She never picked them up because she couldn't bear the sound of his voice. She couldn't face him with the shame she carried. Kevin, meanwhile, was thriving by comparison. After months of tireless hard work, he had finally gotten a promotion. His new office had air conditioning, and he was even assigned his own desk. For the first time in years, he saw a future for himself and for Carol. He imagined them living in a small apartment, eating together, talking about life. He thought about surprising her with a visit, maybe taking her out for dinner, maybe even seeing her laugh again. One evening, Kevin decided to call her. He had just signed his new work contract and received his first upgraded paycheck. His hands were trembling with excitement as he opened the video call app. He grinned at the camera, brushing back his hair and sitting upright, proud of the background that displayed his new workplace. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times, then someone else picked up. Kevin's smile faded instantly. On the screen was a man, shirtless, lounging casually in a dimly lit room. The walls behind him were lined with red satin, and there was soft music playing. Kevin's brows furrowed. Who is this?" he asked. The man smirked. "Wrong time, buddy. We're kind of in the middle of something here. Where's Carol?" Kevin's voice sharpened. "Carol." The man chuckled and then turned his head. "Hey, babe, your brother's calling. You want to say hi?" Carol's face came into view. Kevin gasped. She looked completely different. Makeup smeared, eyes hollow, hair disheveled. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't even moving. She looked dead inside. The man wrapped his arm around her waist. "She's your sister, right? Great girl. Works at the club now, real popular. Her dad's a friend of the business. Said she'd be perfect for it." Kevin felt the floor beneath him vanish. What did you just say?" he whispered. The man angled the camera again, pointing at Carol, who finally spoke, barely. "Kevin, please, I need to explain." He tried to compose himself, his voice breaking. "Is it true what he just said?" She looked down, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Yes, but please let me tell you how it happened." The man interrupted, clearly annoyed. "All right, enough drama. We're busy." He slapped Carol lightly on the cheek, laughing as he cut the call. Kevin stared at the blank screen, paralyzed. His hands shook violently. His lungs couldn't seem to find air. He stood up, then dropped to his knees, sobbing in rage and pain. The betrayal wasn't just from some stranger. It was from his own father, the same man he once admired, the same man he had defended. Carol's voice echoed in his head. "You made me do it. After you left, he said he'd kill me if I told you." Kevin's fist clenched. He screamed silently into his chest, fury boiling in his veins. His entire body trembled, not just from heartbreak, but from the weight of what needed to be done. He wiped his tears and stood up. There was no hesitation in his movement, no confusion. He knew exactly what he had to do. He booked a ticket for the earliest bus home. That night, he didn't sleep. He sat in silence, staring at the ceiling, reliving every moment of their childhood. Carol laughing in the garden, his mother humming songs in the kitchen, Lloyd reading bedtime stories. That man was dead. A monster had taken his place, and monsters don't deserve forgiveness. As the sun rose, Kevin packed a small bag. Inside it were 3 things: a change of clothes, a photograph of Gina, and a silenced pistol he had managed to purchase illegally through a former coworker. His eyes were cold, focused. This wasn't revenge, this was justice, and he was ready to serve it. The bus ride home felt like eternity wrapped in silence. Kevin sat in the back, head leaned against the window, fists clenched so tight that his knuckles turned white. The countryside blurred past him, green fields, narrow highways, scattered villages. but he didn't notice a thing. His eyes stared ahead, burning with a fury that made everything else disappear. He had one mission now. Each mile that brought him closer to Carol was a mile soaked in guilt. Guilt for not seeing the signs, for believing things would get better if he just worked harder, for not asking more questions, for trusting a father who had turned into a predator. Kevin played the video call in his head over and over. Carol's broken expression, the strange man's vile smirk, the slap, the sound of it still echoed in his ears, a sharp crack that snapped something inside him permanently. He arrived at the station just after midnight. The streets were quiet, but his heart was a riot. Every step toward the neighborhood they once called home was heavier than the last. The houses all looked smaller now, dirtier, faded. Kevin walked with his hood up, keeping his head low, the pistol tightly wrapped inside the folds of his jacket. He had never held a gun before, but tonight it didn't feel foreign. It felt like something that belonged in his hand. As he approached the house, he paused. The same gate he used to swing on as a boy, the same porch where his mother once sipped tea. It looked haunted now, dead, like the soul had been sucked out of it. He didn't knock. He called Carol's phone. She answered instantly, her voice trembling, whispering into the receiver. "Kevin, it's me," he said softly. "Open the door, I'm outside." The front door creaked open. Carol appeared in her nightdress, hair tied in a bun, face pale under the flickering porch light. When her eyes met Kevin's, she froze, then she ran into his arms. She clutched him like she was holding on to the last shred of hope in her life. He embraced her tightly, not saying a word. He could feel how thin she had gotten, how fragile her arms felt. His eyes welled up, but he blinked the tears away. "You shouldn't have come," she whispered. "If Dad sees you." "I don't care," Kevin cut her off. She pulled back slightly. That's when he saw the bruises on her cheek, her neck, her arms, some fresh, others fading. Kevin's jaw tightened, rage creeping up his spine like wildfire. What did he do to you this time?" Carol looked down. "Same as always," she murmured. "But it's not just the bruises anymore, Kevin. It's everything. I don't know who I am anymore." He held her face in his hands, gently. "You're still Carol. You're my sister. And I swear to you, I'll fix everything." "No." She shook her head frantically. "Don't do anything. Don't do something stupid. I already have something planned. But tonight, I just want to see your room again." She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Okay, but promise me if you're thinking of hurting him, don't." "I'm just going to say goodbye," he lied. They crept upstairs, trying not to wake Lloyd. Carol's room was just as he remembered, small, quiet, faded posters on the wall, her childhood books collecting dust. But what shattered Kevin was what he saw on the desk, a framed photo of him and Carol when they were kids, hugging Gina. It was cracked, blood-stained, like it had been thrown during a fight and never replaced. He gently guided her inside and whispered, "Lock this door. Don't come out no matter what you hear." "Kevin, please," he said with finality. Reluctantly, Carol obeyed. Kevin turned, walked down the hallway to the master bedroom, and stood before the closed door. He could hear faint snoring inside. His fingers brushed over the pistol in his pocket. He gripped the handle, inhaled deeply, and kicked the door open. Lloyd jolted awake, confused and dazed. "What the?" The second he saw Kevin, he froze. What are you doing here?" Kevin stepped inside, his eyes locked onto Lloyd's like a predator eyeing his prey. "I know," Kevin said. "Everything." Lloyd's face twitched. He tried to sit up. "Listen, don't." Kevin snapped. "How could you? How the hell could you do that to your own daughter?" Lloyd's expression shifted from panic to irritation. "You don't understand. You left us. I was drowning. We had nothing." "No," Kevin said, his voice deadly calm. "You had me. I sent money. I worked myself to the bone for you both. And you spent on drugs and liquor. Then when it ran out, you sold your daughter. You beat her. You watched her rot in that club night after night. She had no other way to survive." "Survive? You call that survival?" Kevin's voice broke. "You destroyed her. You broke her soul. You turned her life into a nightmare." Lloyd's tone turned defensive, even smug. "Maybe if you earned more, this wouldn't have happened. You were never good enough." That was the final straw. Kevin reached into his jacket and pulled out the silenced pistol. The cold metal felt like justice. Lloyd's confidence vanished. He raised his hands. "Kevin, please listen. We can fix this." "Fix it?" Kevin snarled. "You can't fix this. You can't unrape a soul. You can't unsell your daughter." Lloyd's eyes darted to the door, then back to the gun. "You'll go to prison. I'll sleep better in prison than you ever did in this house." Lloyd lunged forward suddenly, maybe to wrestle the gun or escape. Kevin didn't care. 3 shots rang out. Lloyd dropped instantly, one to the chest, another to the shoulder, the last right into his heart. Blood soaked the bed sheets. Kevin stood there, breathing heavily, the pistol still in his grip, unmoved. His hands weren't shaking, his eyes weren't crying. He stared at the corpse of his father, the man who destroyed the family, and said quietly, "Tell Mom when you see her that she raised 2 kids better than you ever deserved." He turned and walked away. He didn't look back, but his job wasn't finished. Carol had told him the men at the club weren't random customers. They were a tight-knit group, regulars, a gang of predators who knew what Lloyd was doing and paid handsomely for it. Some of them even called Lloyd brother, cheering him on like he was doing a favor to mankind. Kevin couldn't leave them alive. He drove to the club, arriving around midnight, parked a block away, his hoodie pulled tight, cap low, eyes watching. He texted a mutual friend who worked there, someone from the past who owed him a favor. That friend confirmed it. The 9 men were all inside, drunk and laughing as usual. At 1:07 a.m., they stumbled out, chatting loudly, cigarettes in hand, ready to go home. That's when Kevin stepped into the alley. They stopped in confusion. "Who the hell are you?" one of them asked. Kevin didn't answer. He raised the gun. "You enjoyed my sister, now enjoy the bullets." Before they could move, he fired. Bang, bang, bang. Panic erupted, screams, footsteps, pleas for mercy. He didn't stop. He hunted each one of them like they hunted Carol, ruthless, silent, precise. Blood spilled across the pavement, bodies collapsed against cars. By the end, 9 lay dead. Kevin stood over the final man, the same one who slapped Carol during the call, the one who answered her phone. Kevin didn't say a word. He placed the barrel an inch from his mouth and pulled the trigger. Click, empty. He smiled, loaded one last bullet, slid it into the chamber slowly. Open wide. The shot echoed through the alley. From afar, club security noticed something was wrong. Shouting, then the sight of Kevin walking away with blood on his jacket. They chased, but he was fast, vanishing into the night, disappearing into a cab that had been waiting nearby. Kevin leaned back in the seat, eyes closed. For the first time in months, his breathing was steady. He wasn't done yet. There was one more person who deserved the truth, Carol. Kevin reached the house just before dawn, long before the rest of the neighborhood stirred. The streets were still drenched in darkness, with street lights flickering weakly and the chill of early morning creeping over the silent rooftops. The cab dropped him 2 blocks away. He didn't want anyone to connect him to the scene at the club, at least not yet. As he approached the old, rusted gate, blood still dried on his hoodie and hands, Kevin paused. The same gate he and Carol once tied streamers to on birthdays. The gate their mother painted sky blue once, now flaking and forgotten. His knuckles grazed its edge as he entered. The front door creaked as he opened it quietly and stepped inside. Carol was sitting on the couch, wide awake. She hadn't slept. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her fingers fidgeting with a frayed corner of her blanket. When she saw him, she bolted upright, running toward him. "You're okay," she whispered, scanning him. "I thought when I heard sirens earlier, I thought you—" "I'm fine," Kevin said, holding her. "It's done." She pulled back slowly, her brows furrowed. "Done? What do you mean done?" Kevin sat her down on the couch. The air between them turned heavy. "I killed him," Kevin said bluntly. "Lloyd and the 9 men who used you." The words landed like a hammer. Carol blinked rapidly, her mouth opening, then closing again. A soft gasp escaped her lips as her legs buckled, and she sat down in silence. What were you saying?" Kevin looked her in the eye. "I shot him 3 times in his room. Then I went to the club, waited until those bastards walked out. I emptied the entire magazine, then one by one, I ended them, every single one." Carol's hands flew to her mouth as she began sobbing uncontrollably. "You ruined your life for me," she cried. You didn't have to. Kevin reached into his pocket and handed her a small card. You're wrong, I had to. If I didn't, I'd live the rest of my life knowing I let my sister suffer while I sat in comfort. You think I could live with that? Carol couldn't stop shaking. Kevin, what's this? It's my friend's contact. He works at a corporate training firm. He'll teach you everything: computers, English, interview prep. You'll work at his company afterward. They'll help you restart your life. You'll be independent. You'll heal. She stared at the card with trembling fingers. And you? Kevin sat beside her. I'll be arrested soon. I didn't hide my face at the club. The guard saw me. Cops will be here any minute. No, she screamed. I can't lose you too. You're all I have. Please, we can run, leave the city, we can start over. Kevin shook his head. I made peace with my fate the moment I saw that man pick up your phone. Some people deserve death, and I gave it to them. But I also knew I wouldn't walk away from this. Carol fell into his arms, wailing. You saved me, but at what cost? You saved me and destroyed yourself. No, he said softly, holding her. I didn't destroy myself. I destroyed the monster that was eating you alive. And if that means I live behind bars, so be it. But you'll walk free, you'll smile again. That's enough for me. They sat like that for a long time, brother and sister, wounds open, hearts bleeding. But in that brokenness, there was a flicker of something sacred, something neither trauma nor blood could erase. Family. Suddenly, the door knocked. Then came the loud voice. This is the police. Open up. Carol jolted. Kevin stood calmly. I'll handle it. No, Kevin, please, she begged, gripping his arm tightly. They'll take you forever. I can't live without you. He turned to her, gently brushing the hair from her face. You can. You will. Visit me when you can, write letters, but never stop living. That's all I'll ever ask. He kissed her forehead, walked to the door, and opened it. Within seconds, officers stormed in, guns drawn, shouting commands. Carol screamed, trying to run toward him, but Kevin raised his hands. I'm unarmed, he said. I surrender. They handcuffed him, dragged him out of the house. As they passed Carol, she collapsed to her knees, screaming his name. He looked back once, offered her a small, broken smile, and disappeared into the dawn with red and blue flashing lights bouncing off the street. The trial began 3 weeks later. It was the headline across every local channel. Mass shooter or broken savior. Man kills 9, claims he was saving sister from human trafficking. Inside the courtroom, Kevin sat calm. He wore the same stoic expression since the day of his arrest. No remorse, no outbursts, just silence. But when Carol took the stand, everything changed. Dressed in a simple white outfit, she stood trembling behind the microphone. The judge asked her to recount the events that led to the tragedy. What followed left the entire courtroom in stunned silence. She revealed everything: how their mother died, how Lloyd changed, how Kevin left to help, and how the real nightmare began. After she described the first night Lloyd slapped her, the night he sold her soul to a stranger, how he laughed while counting the money, how she cried herself to sleep every night praying Kevin would somehow know, she pointed at Kevin and broke down. He didn't just kill those men. He killed the pain. He killed the silence. He killed the helplessness that was suffocating me. If that makes him a criminal, then I'm guilty too, because I'm the reason he did it. Gasps rippled across the courtroom. The judge raised his hand for silence. Kevin's attorney pleaded temporary insanity, but Kevin, when given a chance to speak, refused to blame his actions on any mental health condition. I was sane, he said, sane enough to see that my sister was being tortured while the world turned a blind eye. Sane enough to understand that the law wouldn't act fast enough to save her. So I did what a brother had to do, what a man should have done. The prosecution pushed for life imprisonment. We can't have vigilante justice, they argued. No matter how tragic the backstory, the law must remain the law. The judge looked torn. Days passed before the verdict came. The courtroom was packed. Kevin stood straight as the judge read the sentence. Given the extraordinary circumstances, the prolonged abuse suffered by the victim, the complete absence of protection by any adult or authority, and the moral complexity of the actions committed by the defendant, a pause, This court sentences Kevin Marshall to 22 years imprisonment with parole eligibility after 12 years and mandatory psychological rehabilitation during incarceration. Gassed again, Kevin remained still. He expected worse. Carol broke down. She was both relieved and heartbroken. She knew 12 years was a long time, but it was still a chance, a possibility. After the sentence, Carol walked up to Kevin as the guards prepared to take him. "I'll wait for you," she whispered. "I'll build the life you dream for me." Kevin smiled for the first time in weeks. "Make it beautiful and never look back." Life moved on in the outside world. Carol began working with Kevin's friend. She trained, studied, and soon landed an office job. Her first salary wasn't huge, but it was hers. She framed the pay slip and wrote one thing on it: for Kevin. She also began volunteering for women's shelters, helping survivors like her. She told her story at workshops, using her pain as power, her scars as lessons. Every month, she visited the prison. Kevin would always ask two things: "Are you okay?" and "Are you smiling?" She always answered yes. 12 years later, Kevin stepped out of prison, grayer, quieter, but not broken. Carol was waiting at the gate, holding a small pendant, the same one Kevin had once saved for her. Inside it was a photo of all three, Gina, Kevin, and Carol, smiling long before life changed. He took it, held her hand, and whispered, "Let's go home." This time, they finally had one. The story of Kevin and Carol is not just one of vengeance. It is one of love stretched to its limits, of trauma that outlives the body, and of a justice system forced to reckon with the gray between right and wrong. Kevin did what no law, no counselor, and no authority ever could. He listened to a silent scream that no one else heard. In a world that failed Carol at every turn, school, society, law enforcement, it was her brother who chose action over indifference, even when the cost was his freedom. Carol, once a girl suffocating beneath fear and shame, emerged from the ashes stronger than ever. Not because she was saved, but because she chose to rebuild, because her pain was honored, because someone finally said, "Your life matters." If you made it this far into their journey, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us share more powerful stories of sacrifice, justice, and redemption. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another profound tale that might just change how you see the world around you. Thank you for listening.